welcome again, and thank you all for coming. I want to thank also our panel of our guest speakers who have come from far and wide, and we look forward to an interesting and enlightening presentation as we seek to find, working with nature, of how we can protect and restore our reefs and our coastline. Now, no two ecosystems are alike. It's not a matter of one size fits all. Each has their own unique characteristics, and a process of evaluation has to be done. But without any further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for today, a true champion for the environment, someone I'm sure you all know, Ms. Diana McCauley. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. I want to thank, first of all, Lee and all the directors and members of the Negril Chamber of Commerce for having this meeting. I think it's a really good step. I'm a veteran of many such meetings, and I think it's very important to say at the outset that the question of Negril Beach and why we're meeting here today is entirely solution-oriented. That's what we're about, trying to find some solutions for this resource that we all care about so much. I want to thank our overseas presenters for coming from Deltares and the University of Leiden, did I say it right? Dr. Tom Goreau, who grew up scuba diving these beaches, these reefs, and many others around Jamaica. Welcome home, Tom. Very properly introduced, but I just wanted to say my welcome. I want to welcome NGO colleagues, government colleagues, people working in the hotel industry, Negrilians, people coming from Kingston, other parts of Jamaica. I think by being here, you're saying that you care about these issues, and I really want to thank you for that. I want to just take a few minutes to, I hate the term setting the context, but anyway. But I want to just remind us of a few things, and by chance, how these things sometimes happen. These photographs were sent to me last weekend. They're new to me. I think some of you might have seen them already. They're all taken by Robin Farquharson. They're all in the early 1970s, some 1972, some 1973. And I thought I picked 4 of them, so as not to stand here for half an hour, because I think they illustrate certain things, and I wanted to just remind us of what is underneath, what is the basis of this place where we stand here in Goreau, focusing on the beach, of course. So this is 1972, after the road had been put in. Now, before the road was put in, there was no real barrier between the morass, which you can see on the right, and the sea, which you can see on the left. And a good definition of a beach is sand in motion. It moves around. Now, this is a problem for us human beings, but it's not a problem for nature. And sand moves onshore, it moves offshore, it moves east and west in longshore drifts. And it also builds up behind the beach in a sand dune, which is in a very rare way a sand bank. It releases, it's just like you're putting money in the bank and releasing it when you need it. And there's an interaction, there's a connection between the morass and the marine environment, which was compromised when that road was built. So that's our first picture. I actually have a picture of Negril in 1950, before the road was built and before any of this type of development started. But I think many of you will have seen them, and I thought I'd start with some pictures that are new to me. The other thing I want to point out to you is, you see that line, that sort of darker line? You can see the very clear water in the foreground of the beach. And we used to talk about Negril, because I'm old enough to remember all this, as having gin clear water. And you can see it. But that line at the back is seagrass, seaweed, which we tend not to like, right? And we want to take it out because sometimes it has sea eggs in it and a tourist can step on a sea egg and so it's a problem, right? But that seagrass that you can see quite a lot of is a very key reason why we have a beach in the Goreau. So I wanted to show you that picture. As we had more runoff from the land getting into the sea, because the seagrasses are flat, it's going to advance and come closer to the beach. But this is where it was in 1972. Lots and lots of seagrass. Hopefully this will work. This is another picture, and in the beginning that's how development in the Goreau was envisaged. Really low impact, very focused on nature, very low rise. You can see we've come a long way from that and everybody driving around. But the thing I want to point out in this picture is the beach vegetation, that low sort of grayish looking something, grass, vines, that is between the bigger trees and the actual sandy beach. That too is going to help and did help stabilize the beach. Now if you walk the beach now, you will see very, very little of that. And then this picture, because I wanted to highlight the beach vegetation, the very large trees that were pretty close to the water. Now the beach doesn't stop at that line of trees. It goes way, way back, and before the road was built, all the way to the morass. So we used to have these really big trees. Some of them are not native in 1972. There was, planting of coconuts and removal of native trees and replacement with others. But we still had, in 1972, large trees on the beach. And lastly, I like this picture because it shows you the undergrowth, the sort of under beach vegetation. It shows you that in a beach that's not organized around humans, seagrass that's broken off in weather and stuff washes up on the beach, forms so-called rackline, and breaks down to provide sand and habitat for critters. And but the real thing I want to say about this picture, you can see how close the beach vegetation is to the sea. Now that's something again that when we're thinking of tourism resorts we don't like. We tend to clear the beach vegetation way back to give this wider white sand beach that we've all come to depend on. So I think everybody in this room probably knows that there were mistakes made in the development of the Goreau. And of course we could spend the entire day discussing those mistakes, but I don't want to do that. We are where we are. I just wanted to remind you a little bit of some of the natural processes that if we don't respect and if we don't seek to restore, we're going to have a much harder time getting back to a state where the beach and all the other natural resources are stable and have integrity. My job here today, apart from this little trip down memory lane, is just to moderate, to keep people on track, on time, to make sure you have time to ask your questions. So I'm going to be somewhat rigid with presenters. I hope they'll forgive me, because I've been to many public meetings where the audience doesn't get to ask what they want to ask, and I want to make sure that happens here today. And so from the audience, I'm going to ask you, if you want to make a speech, can you wait till afterwards and speechify to us? Please, can you just make simple questions, not simple, they can be complex, but questions that you have that you'd like anybody on the panel to answer, they'll be happy to do so. And if anybody wants to talk in much greater depth about aspects of any presentation, I think we'll all be around afterwards and you can come up and do that. So that's my little welcome to you. It's great to see you all here, great to see a full room. I'm going to hand over now to Sophie, who's going to introduce our speakers in greater detail.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure this morning to introduce Thomas Goreau, otherwise known as Tom, who some of you probably remember Tom being here many years ago. Thomas Goreau is a geochemist and marine biologist. He's the son of Thomas Fritz Goreau, who was a marine biologist who worked extensively on the coral reefs of Jamaica and many other reefs in the Pacific and the Caribbean. Tom grew up in Jamaica and went to primary school in Halfway Tree and St. George's College. He earned degrees in planetary physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, planetary astronomy at the California Institute of Technology, and biochemistry at Harvard University, PhD. With his parents, he researched the coral reefs of Jamaica and continues to conduct research on the impact of global climate change, pollution, and new diseases in reefs all across the Caribbean, Indian Ocean, and Pacific. His current work focuses on coral reef restoration, fisheries restoration, shoreline protection, renewable energy, community-based coral reef management, mariculture, soil metabolism, and stabilization of global carbon dioxide. He was formerly Senior Scientific Affairs Officer at the United Nations Center for Science and Technology for Development. He is currently President of the Global Coral Reef Alliance. He has published some 200 scientific papers and authored more than half a dozen books in many different fields of science, focusing on large-scale environmental restoration and reversing global climate change. His research in Jamaica spans geology, geochemistry, hydrology, climate change impacts, coral reef ecology, algae ecology, and physiology, eutrophication, water quality mapping of coastal zones and watersheds to identify sources of pollution, mariculture, and development of methods to clean up coastal waters, restore coral reefs, and fisheries restoration. Mr. Goreau, thank you very much for coming today.
Yes, good morning. It's a pleasure to be back in the group. A long time. I've been back here in about 20 years. But, you know, we have been studying the reef and the beach and the water quality here in the group for about 60 years. I remember the beach when there was not a single building length of the beach. We had to come by boat from the grill. Came around. And my father was diving out here 60 years ago to check on the reef and developing the first management plan for the grill to present to Norman Washington Manley before the development. I remember spending a whole day on the beach here. I only saw one person early in the morning trotting down from Orange Bay with an empty wheelbarrow, and late in the afternoon trudging back with a wheelbarrow full of coconuts. And one person the whole day on the beach. Okay? It's a very beautiful land. Now, the thing about Negril is it's the calmest place in Jamaica. We have the biggest sand factory in Jamaica being produced by the good algae that grow. We've been killing them with the sewage because they've been overgrown and wiped out by the bad algae that don't produce any sand. But still we have a lot of sand there. And the beach has been fairly stable. And unlike other beaches in Jamaica and all around the world that are washing away for a lot of reasons. But the same trends apply here. We have simply been lucky. Because the fact is global sea level rise is occurring at about 3 to 4 millimeters a year, and it's going to accelerate. And it's going to be much worse than people recognize. So even though you've had a couple lucky years where the northers have moved the sand from the north of the beach down to this side of the beach and redistributed it, the long-term trend is going to be massive erosion, and you have to prepare for that. So I don't have time to talk about the condition and change in the reef or the water quality. I don't have any time now. So for those people who want to discuss environmental management of the grill and long-term issues here, we can talk after this presentation, because there's local people who want to talk about that. But we just don't have time now, we just have time to talk about the beach. So there are basically a few options. One is to pretend it isn't happening and bury your head in the sand and do nothing. That is what most people are doing. They wait, occasionally a storm moves the sand back and they think the problem is solved forever. But in fact, worldwide we're losing essentially all our beaches. So is this too loud? No. The echo is loud? No. All right, so we'll just put it further back, all right? So one is to put the head in the sand. Now the fact is, global sea level rise is very real. We have to be prepared. So that is a fool's errand approach. Sooner or later, it's going to pay you back. Well, the next view, which is supported by many people, simply don't even try. Walk away and cut your losses now. Abandon the coast and run for the hills before it happens. Well, for those of you who have already invested in coastal infrastructure, obviously that's not a desirable option. But I mean, there are some of the world's leading beach experts are recommending that because they think it is so hopeless to protect most of the beaches. Okay? The third option is hard engineering or breakwaters, which have been proposed by coastal engineers all over the world. I just want to say a few things about breakwaters. They operate by reflecting the wave. That concentrates all the wave force right at the point where it's hitting the wall. And that is why every cliff around the grill on the west side has no sand at all to a depth of about 15 feet because of the scar of the wave. And the result of any breakwater is it will protect what is behind it as long as it stands, but that it will cause the erosion of all the sand in front of it, and then when that is gone, it will wash away the sand under it, and then the thing will crumble, collapse, and fall apart and need to be rebuilt. And that is what happens with every solid breakwater in the world, and every one that has ever been built, and every one that will be built. And it's because of the physics of the situation that it protects the wave. That is not what a coral reef does. Okay? And that is why the fourth option, the thing about the hard engineering, it is the most expensive option and is guaranteed to fail in the long run. I can give you many examples, but we don't have time for that now. So the other option is to restore the natural ecosystems that produce the sand and protect it in the first place, which is the coral reef. Now, all around Jamaica, our reefs used to look like this. This is from after Hurricane Charley in 1951, after our reefs were very heavily damaged by the hurricane. But we had walls of coral all around Jamaica except where the river mouths were. And that is what produced the sand from our beach and protected it. They're gone. They're gone. I mean, the whole time I've been diving in the grill last week, I've seen one elkhorn coral, a little baby. Okay, staghorn coral, the branch goes below, only a handful, and all of them are affected by disease. So we have lost the natural protection we used to have. And if we want our beach back, we have to grow it back. Now, so what I want to show is how we do that. Okay, now this is what we call BioRock technology because it means living, growing stone. Because what we're doing is we're producing limestone rock, the rock Jamaica is made from, that coral reefs are made from. And we grow it out of the sea. So that has many applications for restoring ecosystems, mariculture, and growing beaches back. I don't have time to get into all of this now, but anyway, show you some pictures. So there's an immense amount we can do in keeping ecosystems alive when they're dying and growing them back when there's no natural recovery. I'll show you some examples. This technology was originally invented 40 years ago by an architect to produce building material in the sea. And 30 years ago, I invited him here to Jamaica to work with me to apply it towards restoring coral reefs. And so it began for 10 years to work exclusively in Jamaica. This is technology that was invented and developed here in Jamaica. But we had to abandon our work due to lack of funding. We couldn't continue to work in Jamaica, we had to move abroad. And so, well, since then we did more than 400 projects in more than 40 countries all around the world. I will show you some examples. There's been no work in this technology done in Jamaica for the last 20 years, even though it was developed here. This is back in St. Anne's, one of the first structures we built. We were growing reefs in areas where all the corals had died from pollution, and we were growing corals at record rates, 3 to 5 times faster than had ever been reported before. In water quality was killing off the reef. This is in Negril 25 years ago. We were growing corals here, we were growing staghorn coral, now almost entirely disappeared. And we were growing at nearly a centimeter a week. Many times record rates here in Negril in West End. We were growing elkhorn coral, which is now was a coral that used to dominate our shallow reefs. I've only seen one little coral in the whole last week here. That we were growing here too 25 years ago, so we can easily do it. This is a 4-year-old reef in Indonesia. This is what we do. We grow reef in places where the reefs have died, and we very quickly build up fish populations. This village in Indonesia restored their fisheries that had collapsed simply by growing reef up where their reef had died. Another 4-year-old reef is what we do. Now, to show you, this is before, when we began at this site in Indonesia, there was almost no coral, almost everything was dead. The same spot 10 years later, completely covered with coral. So what we do, we use low voltage electricity. I know everyone sounds afraid of that, but it's like a battery, a few volts and a few amps. And with that, we're able to greatly increase the growth rate, the survival, the settlement, and the resistance to stress, not only of corals, but of all marine organisms. We grow back seagrass and salt marshes and other marine ecosystems, oyster reefs and other things, not just corals alone. Everything benefits. I mean, we get much higher settlement of corals, much greater growth rate, much greater survival. And the reason is that what we're doing is we are stimulating the fundamental biochemical mechanism by which all forms of life make their energy. That is healthier and able to resist stress that otherwise kill them. That's why we keep them alive where they would die and grow them back where they don't recover naturally. So here's some material that we produce. And this is solid limestone block going around a steel bar. So we make structures out of steel. The steel does not rust. The electricity prevents the rusting. And then we grow limestone, typically about 1 to 2 centimeters a year, to produce materials about 3 times harder than concrete. It's a growing material that is much harder and cheaper. And self-repairing. Here's an example of a structure that's been in the water for 11 years. A boat mooring broke and a boat hit it, smashed into it, and you consider steel bar that's been in the sea for 11 years, has no rust on it at all. The day after it was hit. Our reef, both smashed into it, and consider bare steel. No rusting. 1 year later, it's grown back. So this is a material that repairs itself, unlike any other. Every other marine construction material is strongest when you put it in and deteriorates from day one. Cracks, crumbles, corrodes, and rusts and falls apart. Well, you'll ask about hurricanes, of course. This is in the Turks and Caicos Islands, the project I built right in front of the governor's mansion in Grand Turk. And pictures here are before and after the 2 worst hurricanes in Turks and Caicos history, which hit 3 days apart, one after the other, and damaged and destroyed about 80% of the buildings on the island. Our reefs were not even welded because we didn't have money for welding equipment. They were hand-tied together with wire. And now the reason it was not destroyed by the hurricane is because it acts like a coral reef. A coral reef does not reflect waves. The waves go through the reef, through the holes and cracks and crevices. It doesn't get reflected at all. Dissipates energy passing through the structure. And the structures we make do not get destroyed by waves, whereas solid objects or a seawall there would have been destroyed. This is in the Maldives. Every island in the Maldives is washing away. Every resort is surrounded by a rock wall or a sandbag wall. In this particular area, the beach was gone, buildings and trees falling into the sea. We built a BioRock reef in front of it. And in less than 2 years, the whole beach grew back, a 50-foot wide beach. And when we began, that building was about to fall into the sea, and they told us there was no way they could save it. They would have to tear it down and abandon it. We grew the new beach in front in a couple of years. Here you can see the reef we grew is a dark line you see here in front. It's a reef we grew, and that is a new beach we grew in a couple of years. And that beach has been stable now. They shut the electricity off. They've grown a whole coral reef. Now the whole coral reef around died from high temperatures in 1998, and our corals survived because they were stronger. So all the fish moved out of the dead reef into our structure. When we built, there was no sand here. We built on bare rock, but the sand built up all around it when it grew on the beach. And the beach now has been stable now for 18 years. The Asian tsunami passed over the island and didn't wash away our beach, so it worked. This is an example in Indonesia with severe erosion. They're piling up concrete bags on the shore. It's an area with a big tidal range, very different than Jamaica, but here we built BioRock structures out in the sea to dissipate wave energy offshore. It's at low tide, so it's visible at low tide at this location. There's nothing to do here, but within 8 months, you can see the beach going on Google Earth. Here you see the structures with the arrows, is where we built the structures, and where the beach had been eroding within 8 months, you could see on Google Earth the beach beginning to grow towards the reef structures. Another example in Indonesia here, where this hotel here had built a seawall and it was about to collapse. The seawall had caused erosion of the sand in front, it had undermined it, it was about to collapse. So we built some BioRock structures in front. 1 year later, the beach had grown right back up, so this is the wall that was about to fall down. We built up a couple of feet of sand in front of it. You turn around and look behind you, that is next door. And if you look behind the fallen tree, that is a seawall the neighbor built 1 year before, at the same time as the seawall that was saved. We didn't build a BioRock reef in front of it. So, this is another example from Indonesia. This is another example of severe beach erosion, beach structures about to fall into the sea. They've had to move them repeatedly because of the erosion. This was in December of last year. We put in a whole bunch of BioRock shore protection structures here. Let's see them here and then more here. This is the beach where it was eroding. And we installed them in January of this year. Within about 2 months, about 80% of the beach grew back. And this is a picture taken last week. And when we began, I mean, there was a cliff there and it builds up very quickly. Now, show you some more pictures of that. You can see the structures offshore. And so what we're just doing is dissipating the energy offshore so the sand builds up on the land. It's very easy to do. This is one of the structures we have. We have about 50 of them there. And as you can see, it's white because it's growing limestone rock. I mean, that should be steel if it's rusting, it's not. Okay? The sea glass is growing like that under it. And what you see here is all of these little things here are baby corals springing up. All around. Okay, so it works. Now, to do this, obviously, costs a fraction of a seawall, because when you build a seawall, what you do is you build a steel framework, and then you spend a lot of money on cement, and labor, and concrete form support. So the steel has almost a negligible part of the cost of a building like this is steel. So what we do is we make a steel frame. We don't buy cement, we don't buy plywood, we don't need a lot of labor, we just wire it up and grow it. So what we do costs about 10 times less than a concrete structure of the same dimensions. You know, so what that means is that we can protect large areas for much less cost. A seawall costs about 10 or 15 million US per kilometer on the average. Okay? Always costs maybe about 1/10 that, and they restore the ecological surface and the fish habitat at the same time that they grow the beach. So, I mean, this is an example. At one point we were asked by a certain unnamed hotel at the north end of the beach to prepare a plan to grow a reef to protect their beach. Well, we made several plans for them, but they prefer the idea of a rock wall, so that was never done. This is the next example of a design we could do here in McGrill down in the West End. West End, which used to be Hough Heaven. Hough Heaven has a little tiny beach. I used to dive from there all the time. No, well, it's a little cove, no beach. It was too rough for sand to accumulate. Okay, but we could grow that back if they would let us, you know, make a little beach in that little area. So we can build designs sort of like this all along the grill, for example. Now, a couple of things we could do. One is to build a shore protection reef out in front of the swim zone to let the beach grow back. The second thing is to store the reefs out in Sandy Key, which used to be an island, wash away in a hurricane. And store the reefs offshore as well to have an additional barrier out there. This we can easily do. We do a lot of work with solar panels. This is in Montego Bay, what we did back 25 years ago. We're growing reefs out in the sea using solar panels. Wave energy, this is work I'm doing in Indonesia. We can power huge projects just using the wave energy. Not in the grill, because we don't have much waves here, but in other parts, so here is kind of hard. Anyway, so there are many ways you can do it. I will also say, just very briefly, community-based fisheries restoration is critical to everything we do. This is an example of a project I did 2 months ago in Vanuatu in the South Pacific, and working with fishing communities. They lost their reef in the Second World War. Their reef was dredged up to build a US military base. Okay, they don't have any reef now. They want to grow their reef back. So here I am working with local fishing villagers to school children get involved, building structures, installing them. And the whole fishing community is involved in the project. So that is something we want to do. Now I just want to say what we do is a short-term solution. The long-term solution here in the grill, you have to control the water quality because the algae are overgrowing and killing the reef because we don't treat sewage properly. We can talk about that later. So there are a lot of long-term issues. I mean, we can do short and medium term. Long-term, you've got to deal with the whole ecosystem water quality issue. We'll talk about that later for those who are interested. And of course, we have to deal with climate change. At the present level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, this is the old sea level from the north coast of Jamaica 130,000 years ago. 7 meters above today's level. The last time temperatures were 1 to 2 degrees warmer than today, sea level was 7 meters higher. CO2 in the atmosphere is 40% less than it is now. The equilibrium temperature and sea level for today's CO2, 400 parts per million, is plus 17 degrees Celsius, plus 23 meters in sea level. So for today's CO2 level, we are going up eventually to about 75 feet higher than we are now. Okay? Now, this is why we're begging Jamaica for years to take the leadership in the Climate Change Convention and insist that countries reduce CO2 in the atmosphere to safe levels, not just try to reduce the increase. But in the long run, I mean, we have to count on the governments of the world to do the right thing on climate change or all is lost. But at least until they come to their senses, we can at least restore our environment. Okay, so thank you very much, and I hope we can do something back here in the grill again.
So don't go, Tom. So I have a question for you just before, since you are so quick. How do you secure the structures you make? How do you secure them to a sand bottom or substrate? How is that done?
Well, the thing is, we can build any size or shape. I mean, you've only seen a handful of the possibilities. The possibilities are unlimited. And in fact, when we do it for fishes, each fish is looking for a different size or shape. You can build structures for octopus or lobster or other things very Okay, so now that's all. Okay, your question again.
How is it secure?
Okay, now basically most of our structures are not secured at all because they cement themselves to the bedrock. The limestone grows and attaches itself to rock. If it is on sand, the sand will cement itself around the base. The limestone will grow. So we have only one case where we did something in Fort Lauderdale in Florida where there was an open exposed coast. We had to drill into the bedrock and secure it because they insisted that they didn't, But the things you see in Turks and Caicos, those projects were about 15 or 20 feet of water, exposed, fully exposed to massive hurricane waves. And we didn't have any problem with them. And those were not they were not attached to the bottom. In fact, the sand built up around them. Whereas when they put concrete structures in the water, they caused erosion and scour around them.
So you would need the hurricane not to hit right after you put them in the sea.
Yes, but exactly. Every other form of coastal protection is strongest when it's built and deteriorates from that point on. And ours is exactly the opposite. It's weakest when you build it. So that's right. That's when you have to hope no hurricane hits us soon.
Thanks very much, Dr. Goreau. Please give him a round of applause. Sorry, it was fascinating. But we will have a long question and answer session.